Recently, somebody asked me about training for law enforcement in general, and the Bureau of Prisons in particular. Well, the police academy that I attended in Washington State lasted like 3 months. As a matter of fact, one of the videos that they showed probably started out as film, but it had Jack Webb, the guy that did Dragnet, Joe Friday, and he narrated the training video. So that ought to tell you how long ago that was. And two, it was all about firearms, and I believe that we spent like 80 hours or something in firearms. And the classes that I took with the Bureau of Prisons, we barely touched on firearms. I mean, we went to the range a couple of times and you qualified, but as far as when to shoot and not shoot, that was really glossed over, because quite frankly, prison guards don't have a lot of leeway. You're an escaping felon and we shoot you off the fence, or you're escaping from our custody in one manner or another, and depending on the situation, we may or may not be able to shoot you down. So a police officer, on the other hand, when I first started, when I was a policeman, there was a rule that said an escaping felon, a fleeing felon, could be shot. So in other words, you were a burglar, you ran out of the house and I yelled halt, and you didn't stop, I could shoot you in those days. Now if you did that, oh my God, you'd go to prison. So times are changing. I'm not saying they're changing for the better, I'm telling you that they're changing. So police officers still have to keep up with that. So the difference between the training that I received as a police officer on the street and the training that I received as a correctional officer behind the fence is about 4 to 1. So I know a lot of correctional officers get really upset. A lot of general public calls us guards, so I'll use that term. A lot of guards get really upset and say, well, we are law enforcement. Well, that's true in some departments, and in some it's not. The federal one, they call us law enforcement. We're covered under the same laws and rules as the FBI and the U.S. Marshals Service. We had the power of arrest and those kind of things, and carried firearms and et cetera, and off duty we could carry firearms. And as a retiree, I do carry a firearm when I'm in the United States, not here, working on that. So technically, yes, we are law enforcement, but we didn't really have the training that most police officers do. Now in a place like, and I'll just pull an example out, New Jersey, for example, their correctional police officers, they go to a very long academy and they're trained like police officers. I wish the Bureau of Prisons would do that. I also wish that they would institute the use of polygraphs to weed out the people that have done things that have not been detected. Like when I was a police officer, they asked me a whole series of questions about criminal activity, and then based on that I was hired or not, and I did very well in that, and it eliminated a lot of people that probably would have been hired before me. And same thing would be nice in the Bureau of Prisons, is that I personally know of people that were caught using illegal substances that were, and I can think of at least 2 instances where they were child molesters themselves, the officers were, and then of course there was at least 1 theft that I could think of that was prosecuted. So a polygraph as part of the hiring process would really help significantly. Problem is, they're having a very difficult time getting anybody into law enforcement in general and prison work in particular at the present time, due to the social climate in the United States. It's also spilling over into this place too. I mean, you see people with less respect for the police than has been in years past. Of course, here nobody's really had respect for the police because here they all take bribes. You could probably bribe your way out of being a major drug dealer, or a little minor murder or rape or something. You could probably bribe your way out of most of that if you know the right people to bribe and you have the money to do it. Unlike in the U.S., where most of the cops are, upstanding, do their job fellows. It's only the extremely select few that end up in the news. And it was the same way where I worked. I mean, I worked with hundreds of correctional officers, and only people I could count on one hand were bad and needed to be fired or eliminated. And by the way, the people that I saw fired, I actually saw more people die or commit suicide than be fired, because it's just that difficult to fire a federal correctional officer.